this life. Yes. I so intoxicated, man. You don't know why you do what you do. Yes.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Life of a Car Guy podcast. I'm your host, Pete the Car Guy. Thank y'all so much for checking us out on yet another beautiful Saturday morning. It's been blazing out there a little bit, but we're going to keep it cool in here. So can't wait to get started. Got a lot to drop and a little knowledge to share as well, too. So without further ado, you know how we do. Let's go ahead and kick this off with the What's Going On segment. Talk to me so you can see. Oh, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Yeah, what's going on? Oh, what's going on? Right on, baby. All right, guys. R&R Embroidery has come through for us. We have finalized the first hat and first shirt for the Life of a Car Guy apparel. It's going to get shipped out here, hopefully within the next week or so. We've got the designs already laid out. It's done. It's ready to roll. I cannot wait to show you the examples. Hopefully, we'll have it within the next week or so. We will see. Just depends on how quickly we can get the shipping in and done. But we are ready to roll. I cannot wait to show you guys. It's going to be so awesome. I'm really, really excited about it. Cannot wait. So be on the lookout for that. And hopefully we can have something within the next week or so. Okay. Take the Wheel episode 4 with Chris Ford. Unfortunately, we're going to have to postpone because of an unexpected engagement that Chris happened to have at the last minute. So he apologized, obviously, and want to apologize to you guys as well because we've really been trying to get it done. Hopefully, we can get that recorded maybe by this month. If not, maybe we'll get him in next month. But one way or another, we're going to do a Take the Wheel segment before the end of the month. I do have another interviewee lined up, and I'm going to touch base with him and see if we can get something scheduled. So thank you guys again for your patience with that. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. But we're going to have that going for you real soon. Okay. Once again, guys, thank you again for checking out the website, www.lifeofacarguy.com. Continue to check out the blogs and leave comments at the videos and everything else. And really appreciate you doing that and continuing to check that out. All right. Now, industry's news. I am salivating over this one. This is really, really cool. So, online publication, Auto Week News, reported that the Toyota GR-GT supercar actually had a model arrive last week at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles, and they unveiled the color in candy apple red. And let me show you this. This goes without saying. Oh my gosh. Look at this bad boy right here. All right. This picture is courtesy of Larry Chen, who was the main photographer for this event last week. And it is absolutely beautiful. I could not believe my eyes when I saw this thing. It is breathtaking. It is a beautiful piece of work, beautiful machinery, and Toyota, hats off to you sincerely. So let's run through a couple of specs on this bad boy. So the weight of this is 3,850 pounds, 0 to 60 in less than 4 seconds. It's 640 horsepower with a front mounted engine, 4.0 liter V8, and it is a hybrid as well too, which kind of goes with the weight of that vehicle as well. And the other great thing about this option is that it's got a rear 8-speed transaxle transmission with a single e-motor or electric motor. All right. And it has a very, very low center of gravity. So this thing will just stay planted on the road. It is absolutely beautiful. Now, one of the things about this is that the GRGT was touted as the Gazoo's Racing newest flagship, and it is made to be a street-worthy race car for anyone and everyone who is looking forward to win some races. How about that? And that's verbatim from Toyota on that one. It is absolutely beautiful. Of course, my professional and personal opinion on this is, oh my God, I'm loving it. Okay. Now, when I looked at this design and I first checked it out, it reminded me of the early to mid 90s Acura NSX, with a slight crossover of the mid 90s Mazda RX-7. Now, for those of you who remember those particular models, now even though these lights are fixed on, whereas the other ones, they were kind of the pop-up lights, just the overall ergonomic design and just the way the vehicle sits kind of reminds me of a cross between both of those vehicles. And it's absolutely just breathtaking and beautiful. Now, the last supercar that came out of Japan was the Acura NSX, which was reintroduced, I believe, back in the late 2018, 2019 timeframe. So I'm looking forward to this. It is going to come out in two models. It's the GT and the GT3, just to let you know. And I have one other great thing to mention. Get a load of this. It will come in a manual. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. For the hardcore enthusiasts like myself, please understand we love the Tiptronic shifters and the paddle shifters. We get it that it saves time with respect to shifting gears and whatnot, but there's nothing like having a manual for a supercar. It's just nothing like it. So thank you, Toyota. Thank you, thank you, thank you for allowing us to see that model in a manual as well. Really, really appreciate that. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and get to the topic of discussion today. And this one's near and dear to my heart. And I thought about this earlier this week, and how I wanted to kind of talk about this. And I got to admit, it's very personal, but I definitely wanted to share it with you guys. And so the topic of discussion is going to be the car guys being thankful and staying the course and staying on track. Now, what does that mean, right? So, anytime you have a situation where you're fraught with obstacles and things that kind of get in your way to your goals or to your objectives or your dreams, you want to make sure that you stay the course and you remind yourself why you're doing those things, right? So I kind of wanted to share some personal experiences that I've had dealing with automobiles that could be seen as a deterrent and almost nearly took me away, not only from the love of vehicles and the passion of driving cars, but also unfortunately threatened my own personal life. So I've had multiple accidents since I've been on this earth, and I kind of want to talk about them a little bit and just kind of shed some light on how that's kind of strengthened my resolve to not only continue to follow in my dreams, but more importantly to continue with the podcast and my love for cars. So back when I was 5 years old, I remember my mom had her 83 Toyota Tercel, which she then turned over to me when I became legally able to drive. I remember when I was 5 years old and we were driving down through Salem, Virginia, and we were going through what seemed like a neighborhood or like a residential area. And I remember my mom was talking to me, and I was in the back seat in the back right side. And my mom, I believe, ran a stop sign, and she didn't realize it. And all I remember was just hearing say, "Oh my goodness!" And she slammed the brakes on, and all I remember was being hit and the car doing a spin like one or two times like that. And being 5 years old and not being able to see what happened, but just kind of in my car seat, so to speak, I was just like in shock. And I remember when it happened, my mom reached back to me and was just kind of grabbing my leg, just checking to see if I was okay. And then other people came to the car and they were looking at me, and I was just like braced on my car seat, just like this. And I was in shock. I couldn't move. And I just remember how that just kind of shook me really, really bad. And it took me a minute to be comfortable about getting back into the car again once we got out. But that was my first experience with a automobile accident. The next one that I can recall took place the week of September 11th, believe it or not. I was coming down off Bent Mountain through the Blue Ridge Parkway on my way to Roanoke, Virginia, from where my dad lived, and I was on my way to work. We were having like a festival day or just like a field day out at my job, and I remember going around a turn too fast, and I hit a puddle, and my vehicle, which was the Honda Accord, the 1992 Accord I was telling you guys about, spun out of control. And I remember going sideways down an embankment off the Blue Ridge Parkway. For those of you who know about the parkway, know about the twists and turns, there are a lot of very steep drops. Now, the one I went down, thankfully, was not as steep as you have seen, but I did a barrel roll down this embankment maybe like 15 times. I just remember spinning. If you can imagine what it feels like being in a dryer and just having the dryer spin over and over and over like that, that's exactly how it felt like in the car. Now, thank God when I came to rest, there was a biker that came by and was yelling down to me. He was like, "You're all right?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Get me out of here." And he came down, he opened the door. I was kind of sitting upside down, and the biker opened the door and we said a prayer, and I was able to walk away from that accident without any major injuries. Matter of fact, the only thing that I injured was my legs because I was walking up the hill and I didn't realize it, but there was a lot of sticker briars, like, rose bushes with the needles. They just kind of scarred my legs. I was just trying to run up the hill. I didn't even think about it. But that experience was a very harrowing situation. Fast forward to when I moved to Richmond and I had my Acura TL. I had a rear end collision sitting at a red light where a Ford Bronco just plowed right into me and just smashed my whole back into my car. And I remember going to the hospital that night, and the next day I was just sore. I could barely move. And then October 2007, a vehicle T-boned me when I was going through an intersection. And I had to be triaged for that. That one, they had to call the ambulance. They had to cut me out of the car. I was in a neck brace for maybe about 3 to 4 months because I had sprained my neck, and I was out of work for about 3 months too. And then the last two accidents all took place in the fall of 2017. This was with my Audi and then the family vehicle, which was my Honda Pilot. The Audi, there were some kids racing out on the highway as I was going to work, and they jumped in my lane and slammed on the brakes, and I didn't have time to react because they jumped right in front of me and ended up plowing into the guy's Toyota Tacoma. And then the other one, about a week later, this crazy person ran me off into the road into a bridge next to another vehicle, and we smashed into each other as that vehicle went on up the road. So that one, I think that last accident was the last straw for me, right? And what happened was, I remember my manager who I was working for, he came and actually picked me up and took me to my house. He and I had a really cool relationship, so that was nice that I could be able to call on him and he came to help me out. But I remember sitting in the house that night after I got home, and I was just like, it's just too many times that this has happened for me to say that I want to continue with my love of automobiles. And I remember praying to God about it, and I was just like, I don't know if I ever want to get behind the wheel of another vehicle ever again. And I remember, God telling me, no, that's not it. You're going to keep going. You're going to keep going. And I remember calling my mom, who also lives in Richmond, and I asked her to come by real quick with her vehicle. And she didn't understand it at the time, but I was asking her, listen, I need to drive your car around the block twice. And at first she was like, well, why do you need to do that? And I told her, because I'm afraid if I don't do this, I will never feel comfortable being behind the wheel of a vehicle again. Now, mind you, all of these accidents, for the most part, I didn't cause any of them, right? Didn't do anything, with the exception of the Blue Ridge Parkway incident. That was going a little bit too fast around the turn, and I shouldn't have done that. And I take full responsibility for that. But the several others, I didn't cause them, right? So it makes you think, well, if all these things are happening, isn't this somebody telling me I shouldn't be doing this and I should just quit? And the answer that I want to share with you guys is no, you never quit. And in any situation, in any goal, any aspiration, any dream, you're going to have obstacles. You're going to have situations and circumstances that may, in fact, deter you and may, in fact, derail or delay what is expected to take place. And that is you fulfilling your dream. So if I can share with you, despite the number of times that I've seen things happen to me and the number of times I've questioned whether or not I should continue, my emphatic answer is for all of you to continue. Press towards the mark, okay? And that's very, very important because in life, there are going to be things that are going to happen, right? And there are going to be things that are going to kind of take us off course or off track. But just remember the why of why you're doing it. Okay, that's really, really important. So, if I could tell you anything, number one, remember the why. Number two, always, always maintain your focus and continue to make the decision every single day. No matter what that goal is, decide for yourself every day in the morning, I'm going to accomplish this. I'm going to accomplish that. Make sure you do that because what you're going to do for yourself is that you're going to continue to go, but you're also going to create the momentum that you need when things like what I've been through happen. You'll have too much momentum happening that you can't stop. Okay. I remember one of my mentors, Manny Wilson, used to tell me, and Manny is a huge success story here in the Richmond area. And Manny would tell me it's all about creating momentum, right? And you always want to create momentum to whatever you're doing because when things come up, no matter what happens, you're already there and you're already rolling. So it doesn't necessarily stop you. It may slow you down a little bit, but you're still going. Okay. And above all, most importantly, never lose faith and continue to give God thanks. That's the most important attribute that I could ever express to you guys on that. Okay. Life is too precious. We only got one shot at this. So let's live it to the fullest. Let's stay on track. How about that? All right. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and go to the drop a dime segment. So on this one, this kind of came up to me earlier in the week, and ironically, I came across an article this morning through Yahoo Autos that asked the question as well. Is it cheaper to lease a car or is it cheaper to buy a car? So let's talk about the differences. And for those that kind of want to review the differences between lease and buy, check out my previous podcast on the pre-finance notion of looking at a vehicle, where I touched on that and the options of that as well. So let's kind of break down the benefits and the drawbacks to leases versus ownership of a vehicle. Now, for those that have excellent credit and have established themselves very well, a lease option is a very, very major attractive option. And it's attractive for several reasons. Number one, the biggest one is lower monthly payments. Now, I was looking at a report from AAA. So they reported in 2024 the average cost for a 3-year lease term is right about 22,900 to $23,000 within a 3-year time frame. And that breakdown on average per month is a little over $600 per month. Now, looking at those numbers versus what it costs to own an automobile and the average cost of ownership per year on an automobile driven at least 15,000 miles a year was just over $12,000 per year. So you multiply that by 3 and you're already at 36,000 plus dollars in a 3-year time frame. So when you look at that, at the numbers, it definitely seems like it would be cheaper to lease a vehicle. But I'll tell you why those numbers are slightly deceiving in just a second. Another reason why leases are a great option over ownership is when we look at a debt ratio with respect to what's on your credit report. So when you own an automobile, let's say you have a loan that's for $30,000, right? And you're making monthly payments. What's being reported on your credit report in terms of debt to income to or debt to equity ratio is the total amount of that loan that you've taken on, right? Now, when you take on a lease option, it doesn't matter what the total dollar amount of that lease is over the span of the 3 years. The only thing that's going to report on your credit report is your monthly payment. Because keep in mind, you don't own the vehicle when you're leasing it. You are actually taking what we call a fiduciary responsibility on the vehicle, and it's owned by the leasing company. So, for example, if you do a lease through Honda, it would be through Honda Lease Trust or Toyota. I think Toyota's leasing company, I think it's Toyota Leasing. I'm not sure of the exact name with that, but it's reported as just your monthly payment, not the entire financed amount, which is great when you're trying to manage your debt to equity. So just keep that in mind. Another one too that's a great option with leasing is that typically you can build in a maintenance package with that. So oil changes and tire rotations can be accompanied with your lease payment as a viable option. So you don't have to worry about those types of expenses with regards to maintaining and maintaining your vehicle. One other thing just to kind of mention with that as well, if you are trading in a vehicle, let's say you owe more than what the vehicle is worth. Typically, leases can absorb a certain amount of negative equity and not roll over once the lease is done to you owing anything after the fact. Now, what I mean by that is let's use the same example of the $5,000 of negative equity. You put that in and you build that into your lease payment. So you're paying on your lease for 3 years. Once the lease is up, when you turn your vehicle in, the debt that's on there is absorbed by the lease. So therefore, you don't have to worry about that debt anymore. Now, in financing an automobile, if you're rolling over negative equity, not only are you looking at a higher payment, but you're also looking at a higher interest rate because of the negative equity, and you're having to cover the expense of that debt being rolled over for the life of that loan that you've taken out with that new vehicle. So, those options, all in all, are great cases to see why a lease would be a more attractive option than an ownership. So let's talk about some of the drawbacks to doing a lease. Number one, lack of long term equity. Now, when we talk about equity in a vehicle, we're talking about the value, right? Now, there are some times where we've seen in the auto industry where a vehicle can appreciate in value or actually add value. And it's only happened once, and that's been due to the chip shortage that took place during the period of COVID, right? That's the only time I've been in the auto industry for 20 plus years, almost 30 years now. And that's the only time where I've ever seen automobiles appreciate and increase in value. Now, with respect to the lease option, because you're turning in the vehicle in that case, you don't have any equity to draw from. There's no value because you've turned the vehicle over. When you own a vehicle, even if you're making payments on it, once you paid it off, that vehicle still assumes a certain value. And that can be used as far as a trade in, or you can sell it and recoup a certain amount of what you paid over time. So you do have that version of equity with an owned vehicle versus a lease vehicle. Another thing with leases are certain fees. So if you're not maintaining the vehicle in a certain way, or when you turn it in, if there's certain levels of damage done to the vehicle, scratches, things of that nature, or if you've exceeded the mileage allotment that is established from the beginning where you're driving the vehicle for the lease, you would have to pay a mileage penalty when you turn in the lease. Now, those are some things that you don't have to worry about when you own your vehicle. You can drive it as much as you want. Another thing, too, is that not only can you maintain the vehicle how you want and not have to worry about fees for scratches and things of that nature, you can also optimize your vehicle in your own way, generally speaking, without voiding the warranty and without canceling your financing. So that's another aspect or drawback with leases. Finally, we talked about the mileage limits. That's a big one. If you don't have the preset version of that, like if you go over your 15,000 miles a year or 12,000 miles a year, and by the way, those are the two main options that are offered in leases. You can purchase more mileage up front, but you kind of have to know what you're driving on a daily basis in order to kind of really facilitate that. But with mileage limits, if you go over by a certain amount, you will have to pay a per mile fee over and above of what that limit is. And then, of course, credit limits and credit restrictions. So most of the time, you do have to have preferred credit at the very least to get the standard rates for leases. And to see the advertised payments that we see on TV or what's advertised online, typically resorts to like a super preferred credit rating of at least 750 plus, maybe 800 plus beacon score and established credit profile. So some things to kind of keep in mind with that. So when we're talking about owning versus leasing, it really is going to depend on your overall situation. There are some individuals who don't drive a vehicle that much, who don't want to maintain a certain amount of debt. Maybe you live in a metropolis or metropolitan area where a vehicle's not necessarily needed all the time, but you might use it occasionally. A lease would be a great option in those situations. But if you're one that drives a lot or, has to put a lot of miles on your vehicle on a regular basis, and you're looking to obtain and keep that equity and have a vehicle that's yours and yours alone, owning a vehicle or financing a vehicle is going to be the better option. So, in my professional opinion, when deciding which way to go, kind of look at the biggest issues that you're facing and what your needs are, that this vehicle and the way in which you're financing is going to help you. Now, keep in mind, there is a blended aspect of this that is offered with leases. Now, at the end of a lease term, you can choose to purchase your vehicle at the end of that term if you so choose. Now, by doing that, not only do you negate the fees and everything at the end, you don't have to pay taxes again for the purchase of that end of lease option. That's a really, really great option for those who want to end up keeping their vehicle at the end of the lease term. So, how that works is they built out the taxes and everything on the first term of that lease agreement. At the very end of the lease agreement, they already have the pre-calculated value of what that vehicle is going to be at the end of the term. So if you do decide to do that, whether you pay cash or finance, you're able to keep that vehicle and finance it out and continue on. So I have seen people who have owned more expensive vehicles like German vehicles or luxury cars or cars a little bit more expensive in price, do that to kind of normalize not only the monthly payment, but the overall cost of what they're paying up front. And it gives you the flexible option of deciding what you want to do at the end of the term. So keep that in mind, food for thought. And for more questions on that, continue to reach out to me through the Drop a Dime segment. And that's on the email from the life of a car guy at gmail.com. All right. Now, let's go ahead and move on. We're right now to announcements for the segment now. So as you guys have seen, the videos have been updated. Everything is pretty much done with respect to the thumbnails and everything. And what I'm going to do is we're going to see if we can start to optimize the Yahoo page and see if we can increase the viewership and everything. So we'll be working on that within the next several weeks and see what we can do with that and make it a more of a pleasurable experience and definitely draw in future car guys and gals to the platform. All right. And thank you guys again for your support and thank you for your comments and everything. Really, really appreciate it. Just to let you know, once again, comments are now available on all the videos. So if you've seen a video that you really liked or you want to leave a comment on and you weren't able to before, you are able to now. So just make sure I share that with you. Be sure to do that and continue to build up the subscription base for me on that as well too. Greatly appreciate it. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and sign off for the day. Just want to kind of remind you, continue to tell as many people as you know about the YouTube page and the podcast and the videos and the blogs and the website, whole 9 yards. Continue to have them subscribe and like and to join the Car Guy, Car Faithful that we're developing here. All right. And speaking of which, this is our thing, this thing of ours. We want to continue to build it and make it available to anyone and everyone who wants to talk about cars and comment about cars, ask questions. We're here for you. All right. And I greatly, greatly appreciate you all. All right, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off for today and go ahead and have me a nice cold glass of ice water to kind of beat the heat. So once again, I just want to share with you guys, appreciate you riding with me. And I want to say thank God because he always has the wheel. And though we may not always agree, it's important that we show respect to one another. All right. Stay up, guys. God bless. I'll see you on the road.